I really like rugby, so I've had a great afternoon. Thank you very much, Ireland, and thank you very much, Scotland, for that. What a brilliant 80 minutes of entertainment that was. So let's get into this game and your spoiler alert if you're trying to avoid the score. Well done, Ireland. Grand Slam is still on. Firstly, I just want to apologise for the slight lateness of this video. I tried to get my videos up as soon after full time as possible. I've prided myself on that. However, today I had a rugby-based conflict where my son was playing in quite a big rugby match, Lancashire Cup semi-final, and I wanted to be there. So I had to watch the game on a delay, and I didn't manage to avoid the result because, well, the internet. So, yeah, anyway, these are my thoughts, having watched the game later than you probably watched it. But just overall, I love both of these rugby teams. There's so much to love about these rugby teams. And I think one of the things that was in my mind the whole time watching it was, I just kept thinking, the World Cup draw is so unfair. The World Cup draw is so unfair, and it really is. I mean, this is going to be an incredible pool game at the World Cup, but the fact that one of these two teams or South Africa are going to go out of the competition before the quarterfinals just feels harsh, because they're really, really good rugby teams. And that first half was so entertaining, and either Ireland or Scotland have been involved in some incredible moments through this year's Six Nations tournament, help make it something really, really entertaining. And even as an Englishman who's found loving the rugby quite tough this weekend, but that Ireland-France game first half was immense. Scotland, their games the whole tournament have been really good fun. The Scotland second half against England was great. This first half today was just mental. When I looked at the stats, the halftime stats, I was like, that can't be right. When it said that basically the teams between them had covered 900 metres of ground. I was like, nah, that can't be right. It's right. 450 metres for Ireland, 421 for Scotland, which is just like you're doing well if you get that in 80 minutes, let alone in the first 40. It was mad. And obviously, before we get into any of the specifics, I just want to say I really hope that Gary Ringrose is okay and back playing rugby as soon as possible. I've described him in recent videos as Ireland's most important player. I know that other players can slot in at 13, Robbie Henshaw mainly, but I think he's up there with Johnny Sexton, maybe even ahead of Johnny Sexton as the most irreplaceable. And we saw in the Italy game the way that the defence changes completely when Gary Ringrose isn't there. So I just hope on a human level he's all right. And I hope for Ireland that he's back very soon as well. As an Englishman, I'm thinking, well, no, actually, that's the thing. As an Englishman, on the one hand, I was seeing the injuries and going, I hope those guys are all right, but it might make England's job easier next week. But that is the thing about this Ireland team. And that's what's so impressive about that second half. All that flux, all that change, all those injuries, all those curveballs getting thrown, and they just soak it up and deal with it the way that they do. And when you've got a team that the systems are so settled, there's so much cohesion, there's so much confidence in what's happening. Everyone's got that hive mind. They're all on the same page, and that is probably the most impressive thing about this Ireland side, because they demonstrate it all the time. You know, there's a lot said when we talk about rugby teams about individual players. This player's great, that player's great. Ireland demonstrate it, and have done all through this Six Nations tournament. It's more about the collective than the individual. And yes, you have to have great individuals to elevate you to real top level, and they are the number one team in the world, and France are number two, and they showed that yesterday. But the collective, the structures are so massive, and that's what's so impressive about Ireland. And again, as an Englishman, it's why it pains me so much to see Andy Farrell in that coaching booth, because he's done such a good job overseeing exactly that. What else do I love? Generally, I love John Barclay. I've worked with John Barclay for BT Sport, and he has to be one of the nicest men ever. But his moustache, dashingly handsome fella, love him, and he's a great pundit, isn't he? What a brilliant pundit! Got a lot of time for him. I'm just going back over my notes. I see I've sort of rushed to getting this video out to you because I appreciated it was late. Yeah, so World Cup draw is a joke. That's 7 defeats now for Scotland in a row against Ireland, which psychologically that's going to have a big impact come World Cup time, you feel. I know all the cliches about form goes out the window and everything, but that's going to be tough. And Scotland, you felt really gave it a crack in that first half. I don't know whether to feel more impressed by Ireland's second half, dealing with all their issues and managing to stretch away, or disappointed with Scotland that they couldn't hammer home that advantage. I think one thing I will say of Scotland is they don't have the same depth, and that was apparent. I think particularly the front row coming off the bench wasn't... the energy went out. And also, if you're talking about impact off the bench, my goodness me, I think potentially the game changer of the match. Tell me if you agree with this. If there was one moment in the match which changed the game completely, and tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree, I say it's when Jameson Gibson-Park came on. Because the speed that man plays at, it's so impressive. I don't think, and this is not a criticism of Conor Murray. What Conor Murray does well, he does very, very well. He's a good game manager. But the way Jameson Gibson-Park just, it was like on and we're going. Another couple of gears Ireland went through. And he's absolutely massive for them. And I'm so impressed by him. And if there were a Lions team, British and Irish Lions team picked tomorrow, he is head and shoulders above any other 9. So good. Really, really thought he was the catalyst. But there were a lot of people that made big statements, you know. Andrew Porter, before the tournament, there were some people questioning elements of his game. He's been brilliant this whole tournament, and he played 80 minutes today. Fair play. Mac Hansen, go back a year or so, and there were some Ireland fans questioning, maybe is he quite good enough to be the main man? What's that, 2 man of the match performances? And he's been brilliant. And I've been surprised how impressive he is. I don't know whether it's just because he's quite a small, wiry kind of guy, but you just don't expect him to be as good as he is. Consistent as well. And that back 3, the balance and the skill between Lowe, Keenan and Hansen is great. But I'm Mac Hansen has been underrated, and he's not anymore because he's showing up on the big stage. What else? The hookers. The situation that Ireland had to deal with, again, hope the injuries aren't too bad. I don't know, were they HIAs, or I don't think they were they? So we'll see what the injuries are with those. But, I mean, Ireland could be down to... Yeah, they could be down to what would be next? Scannell, I guess. And hopefully Herring would be all right. But, I mean, they've got good hookers, but hopefully those two are all right from an Ireland point of view. But... maybe Ireland have accidentally uncovered a new tactic for the future. 3 props. Just it was always the meme, wasn't it, on the internet, that Josh van der Fleer, people would say, oh, he's really improved his ball carrying. Now they're going to be saying, oh, he's really improved his line out throwing. But fair play to him. But at the same time, I've got to be a little critical of Scotland. They didn't turn the screw and take advantage of that, I didn't feel. You almost feel like Scotland, who typically, when they kick, want to keep the ball infield, they almost would have been better to have kicked for territory and to touch, and then put massive pressure on the front lifter. Sam Warburton was saying it in commentary. I was thinking it. You were probably thinking the same thing, and Scotland just didn't seem to do it. And I don't know if that shows a naivety or a lack of adaptability, but it certainly seemed like an opportunity they could have taken, which they didn't. Yeah, let's talk about the booing. What did you make of the booing of Johnny Sexton by the Scotland fans? Because some people have been... there's a lot of people get on the rugby values tip about such things. I actually don't mind it. When I'm at the ground, I don't mind it. I know it doesn't seem traditional and the respect the kicker and be silent. And actually, what I would say is I think it's more intimidating for a kicker when there is complete silence than when there's loads of booing. Like, I can't imagine taking a pressure kick when you can't hear anything and you get that thud of the boot being kicked. I think that'd be more terrifying. So I don't mind it, but I can understand why people have an issue with it. Johnny Sexton, though, this was a great stat which was shared on a WhatsApp group. Johnny Sexton next week against England, should he play? Probably will. Could win, I was about to say will win, probably will, but could win the Triple Crown, the Six Nations, the Grand Slam, whilst at the same time becoming the leading point scorer in Six Nations history, all against England in Dublin on St. Patrick's Day weekend. It's like it's meant to be, written in the stars. So Uh, that's amazing. And to go from Johnny Sexton to Finn Russell, I think that's what I found really impressive about Ireland as well, particularly in that second half. They completely diffused Finn Russell. There was no Finn sanity in that second half whatsoever. They just dealt with it. And it seemed like, the Finn Russell is so unpredictable, but it feels like Ireland anticipated what he was going to do. And well, I think that just speaks to the cohesion in this Ireland team, which I find unbelievably impressive. Can't say how impressive I find it. As for Scotland, Tuipulotu, I thought he was brilliant in the first half for Scotland. And yeah, that first half performance from Scotland was great. And that's where they're at. They're a really very, very good rugby team, not an 80-minute rugby team currently. And that is partly the depth, which I've talked about. They don't quite have the depth of players at that level. But then again, I was thinking about this with my sort of England fan hat on. I'm watching some Scotland players and going, if some of those players playing for Scotland were English, they would be playing for a Premiership team, and we'd overlook them and think they weren't international standard. And yet they play for Scotland, and they look great. Dempsey, brilliant today. And so that just goes to show how much the coaching, the environment, the group, the cohesion, the sum of the parts is really impressive, important. And I think Scotland have got that, and they're a fast emerging nation. I just feel so sorry for them on the World Cup front. No points in the second half though. That is a concern. Equally from the Irish point of view, like when Ireland didn't concede a point for 70 minutes, did they? And that just shows a lot of bottle. And they would be disappointed, and some Ireland fans, understandably, I can get were like, oh, we missed out on the bonus point. But take that, you shut Scotland down, who threw everything at you for 70 minutes. I thought it was great. We've already talked about Jameson Gibson Park being a total game changer. Yeah. Hands up if you're Irish and available for selection this weekend. Next weekend, against England. There's a few battered and bruised bodies and a shorter turnaround. So if England needed some things to help them, I'm not suggesting England will win, but if England needed some things to help them, an extra day's preparation and a few battered and bruised Irish bodies will help. Let's talk Stuart Hogg for Scotland. Now, I don't like being reactive and saying, oh, that player what hasn't been great for a couple of games, therefore ditch them, because the guy is class. But it's not. Scotland do have other options, and there's a couple of times where you're not quite as convinced by Stuart Hogg as you once were, and I wonder if before the World Cup, you just need to. I think it's probably a bit like the England Owen Farrell thing. Actually, the perfect time, the ideal time to make a significant change, is post-World Cup. But in a grueling World Cup schedule, you need to be confident in the guys that you're bringing in. So just a little question mark next to Stuart Hogg. I need to find out, because I didn't see after the game. Did Mac Hansen do another sweary interview? That's what I need to find out. That's what I need in my life. Inject sweary Mac Hansen into my veins. I love it. It's quite funny as well, thinking that the nation of France is going to be cheering for England next week as well. That's something I find quite entertaining. Just on the whole, I'm just going to wrap this up. I might come back with some more in-depth thoughts. I've just finished watching the game on delay because of my son's match. I just wanted to get something out there, and I think the overwhelming feeling is what a fun sport this is, and the way that Scotland and Ireland play rugby makes it so enjoyable to watch. And Ireland are rightfully number one team in the world, and if they go on and win a Grand Slam, Six Nations, Triple Crown, King of everything, then I really hope it's a platform that they're laying to use as a springboard. as we go into the World Cup. But to finish where I started, the World Cup pool system is a joke. I've got a video on that in the feed. And there'll be more Six Nations coverage building up to the final weekend. Super Saturday coming in this channel, as well as other thoughts. And just I would just say as well, if you have any thoughts of videos that you think might make good topics or areas that you'd like to hear about, then I'd love to hear from you, whether it's in the comments or on contacteggchasers@gmail.com, which is where you can find me on email. Really appreciate you watching. If you're still watching now and you haven't already, hit subscribe and get me over that 9,000 subs thing. I'm absolutely buzzing about people that have got on board, and I really appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.